Hey guys, on today's podcast, we talk about questions about autism, new creepy software, and a bad TikTok challenge. Anyways, on to the podcast.
Hey, and welcome back, everybody. This is John and
Joe.
And this is Thinking is Infinite podcast, and this is our third episode.
3.
Yep. So one of the things we like to do is introduce ourselves once again, and my name is John. I'm Joseph's dad, and Joe, why don't you tell very briefly about yourself, and let's just go from there.
Hi guys, I am a 15-year-old teenager. I have been kind of have autism. I was diagnosed with it at the age of 2. If you want to hear more about my experiences with autism and other things like that, you can check out episodes 1 and 2 in this series. But for now, I'll briefly summarize. I've had a bunch of challenges that I've needed to overcome, stories and things that have shaped me, experiences that have really contributed to being able to overcome the challenges that I faced.
Yeah, and one of the things that we would like to dedicate in almost every one of our podcasts as we go along is a little bit about special needs and some of the questions, misconceptions, things that Joseph has experienced, things that I've experienced, and things his family has experienced, and that's something that's going to be a common theme throughout. One of the biggest questions I get, Joe, is 2 questions. One, how did you know that your son had autism? And the second question is, do you think it was the shots? So I think let's just touch base on both of them.
First.
Yeah, how did you
Let's
know?
do the first one first. Get one by one.
Yeah.
So the first one, how did we know?
Well, how did I know?
How did
Because you
know?
were still a little
The
kid.
answer is actually, well, obviously I didn't, but how did he know? The answer was certain
You
things
answered the
about
question
me.
for me?
So, for example, well, Dad'll tell you. Actually, I'm gonna answer the second one though.
You were too little. Well, one of the things I noticed about Joseph that was a little bit different is that there were certain delays, certain milestones that children typically hit that Joe just wasn't hitting. He was very, very fussy as a baby. He would cry a lot, which can be attributed to colic. It can be attributed to so many different things. So it's hard to just say, oh, well, that's the reason. No, I didn't really think that was the reason. But as time went by, I saw Joseph doing a lot of repetitive behaviors, like flipping a shoe. That would be a common thing that Joe was doing. I know as far as Joseph, you were walking fairly early, I think about 10 months, but you had a slight intern in your toe, in your one of your legs that was a little bit different. And you would definitely repeat yourself in a lot of things. And one of the things I noticed that somewhere in between your first and second year was that you used to do a lot of rocking back and forth when it would calm you down. So I definitely noticed that is one of the things that was a little bit different, and it was something that was something that I remember thinking, okay, there's something different here going on. Also, Joseph was you weren't touching your food, you weren't picking up your food and putting it in your mouth. You would only let someone put the food in your mouth. You would refuse to touch it. If I put it in your hand, it would just fall to the floor. And some of the other things of the speech was delayed, which was extremely difficult because, when a child emerges, as anyone who's had a child, and they're able to start communicate, you start to hear sounds that you can familiarize and say, okay, well, this child wants a bottle, this child wants to eat, this child's, there's certain triggers that when verbal communication starts. And unfortunately, there was little to none of that. So it was very difficult, and I remember some of the hardest parts of being a parent is that I saw that you wanted to communicate, Joseph. You were trying to communicate to us, but you just couldn't. And it was one of the hardest things to deal with as a parent, is when you were really I think you were trying to talk to us. You were trying to communicate in some way, shape, or form, and it just wasn't happening. And then, then the testing phase started around 2 years old, and even then they would say, okay, we're going to put a preliminary diagnosis, and then the cavalry came in as far as different therapies, different speech therapy, occupational therapy, physical therapy, ABA therapy, and wow, did they do an excellent job with Joseph, because then milestones were starting to get hit. And I think, Joe, you started becoming verbal. If my memory serves me, somewhere in between your second and third year is when you started to become verbal. And I credit a lot of that to, one, early intervention, and two, the ABA therapy, the speech therapy, and the therapy was, I think it was close to like 6 hours a day. And for a young child like yourself to have therapy for 6 hours a day, it was a lot.
Yeah. I needed a lot of help to really push me. I've heard a lot of the stories too from mom and dad. I've heard a bunch of them. Specifically, my mom, she would they would teach me the symbol of more. So I actually still remember it like this or something. So when I wanted more stuff, I would do hands, learn sign language. I can't remember any of it now except for that, but
well, it was interesting. It was when sign language was starting to be taught, and picture therapy is right around the time you started to emerge with some words. So yes, I do remember the more. I had totally forgotten about it until you mentioned it, that your mom was telling you about that story. Yes, more was something that I couldn't believe when you did it. I was like, oh, thank God. And at least we knew, and at least I knew, and at least your mother knew, is that when you were tapping your fingers together or your hands together, that means you wanted some more of something, whatever that was, whether it was a TV show, whether it was food, whatever it was, you wanted more of it. And that was such a key component in your development. And I remembered picture therapy, meaning we would, I remember going in and taking pictures of everything you may have liked, all your favorite foods, all your favorite TV shows, and where we were hoping, and what the therapists were trying to do is to look for your clues and what you were looking at. And if you were looking at a TV show on a picture, that's the show you wanted to watch. Or if you were looking at a certain food, that's what you wanted to eat. And and just around that time is when you started to emerge and start to become verbal. So it was a pretty interesting experience, to say the least. But one of the best experiences in the world is when the words started coming out, because now everyone could understand what you needed, and everyone could understand what you wanted. And I give them so much credit, those therapists that were there every single day. I wish I remembered their names. I don't remember. I do remember their faces, but I don't really remember their names. It was so long ago. But they did a heck of a job with you.
Yeah, they did. They definitely kind of pushed me to a level that I've been when I was little, I didn't think I'd be at this level now, but
they did a fantastic job. And, and the second thing, and this is where Joe can definitely contribute to a lot of the conversation, is, the second question that I would get all the time is, do you think it was the shots? And I'm going to give you my personal opinion on it. And then, Joe has actually even looked into it himself, because, he's a curious kid. One of the things about Joe is Joe researches the heck out of everything. And, so all you have to do is I could just point Joe in a direction and say, Joe, take a look at this. Tell me what you think about this. He'll give me so many facts within a few days over whatever topic I throw at him. But my opinion on the shots is that no, I don't think that any of the shots had anything to do with Joe's being different when he was younger and who he is today. From what I remember in my memories, 15 years ago, but I remember Joe being different pretty much from the very beginning. And it would be, I didn't see any noticeable changes when it comes to any post vaccination situation. So, some of the things that, I went through in my own head is, did I do anything in my life? Was there certain foods that I was eating during the time when I was growing up in my development? Did I live in an area where the ground was bad or the water was bad, and that's what could have caused it? I've put those thoughts to bed, and I just have to let it go and say, Joe is here, and he's an absolutely amazing kid. He's one of the smartest kids I've ever seen. And he's just a genius. Joe, what do you think about, what did you look into when you were looking into shots and things like that?
Well, here's the thing. We actually don't know completely about the causes of autism, but I can say with a pretty high degree of certainty that it's not the shots. The vaccines don't really cause it. It actually was from a very poorly conducted research paper back in 2006 or something that had very limited numbers of participants. It had probably a few dozen kids, I think, and 11 out of the 13 authors that sponsored the paper all withdrew from the paper. And the ones that didn't were all prominent anti-vaxxers, and people were just against vaccines in general. It also has been widely proven by many highly respected institutions that vaccines don't cause autism. They're not a factor in it. And it's also still very prominent even today. I actually thought, until pretty recently, I thought that the rumor had gone away, and I was actually surprised to learn that it's still there, because I thought that by now people would have either A, moved on to another rumor that also made no sense, or B, just kind of the whole anti-vax thing would have faded away. But no, I was surprised to see that people still think that, and it's just not true.
I think what happens is when it appeared in the last 15 to 20 years, or maybe even more than that now, 20, 25 years, is that autism wasn't something that you heard of that much. I mean, the first time I ever heard of it was a movie called Rain Man in 1988. I'd never even heard of it until I seen that movie, and I remember being a 15, 16-year-old kid and thinking, wow, that I feared that. I said, oh my God, I hope that I never have to experience anyone with autism, because it was a sad movie. It was hard to watch in some instances, because you saw this adult with autism struggling with the world. So it was something that was on my mind after that movie came out, and but it was so rare. I never even heard of autism up until that point. And now it seems like every class has, a few children that are on the spectrum in some way, shape, or form. Now, there could be one or two things. It could have been actually a rise in cases, or it could be also that maybe the kids are being diagnosed with it more often.
Yeah, I feel like it might actually be both, because genetics, I feel like genetics probably plays a role in autism. I don't know what role it plays, but it's probably something to do with genetics and brain chemistry. It's probably some sort of gene that, rearranges the chemical structure of your brain. So the chemicals in your brain are changed, and that's kind of how I think autism probably may be formed. Like I said, we don't exactly know what causes it, but we're not entirely sure, but I feel like that is pretty plausible. And it also is a rise in diagnosis because people know more about this stuff. Even back in the 80s when Dad was a kid, no one really knew what autism was. It wasn't heard of. There wasn't that many professionals that could treat autism, and treatments weren't widely available, nor was diagnosis. And nowadays, people understand autism better. They know how to treat it. They know how to, manage a person with autism. They know how to diagnose it. And that's kind of led to a rise in the amount of people, the percentage of people getting diagnosed. So I feel like both could be a factor in the rise.
Yeah, I agree. I think that one of the things that moving forward is, for a parent out there who may think that they have a child that's under 1 or 2 or 3 years old that could be on the spectrum, is look for delays in activities that are milestones that a child should be hitting. Look for repetitive thoughts, repetitive actions and things like that. That's something you should definitely look out for, and work your hardest to get your child into early intervention. That's one of the things that I have seen that has definitely worked in Joe's favor is all the early interventions. And don't blame yourself. Don't worry about any vaccines that you may have given your child. And when you really look at it, it can be what Joe has is a superpower, and all these kids that are on the spectrum have their own superpowers.
Yeah, the thing is, I feel like many people blame themselves, or they believe that autism is a lot worse than it actually is. Early intervention is also key, because if you intervene early enough, they will eventually learn how to talk and how to communicate. But if you intervene too late, it might become, their communication problems might be worse than if you intervene early. So you do have to kind of keep an eye out for these symptoms and signs of those types of disorders. And it's not even just it's not even just autism. Early intervention with many of these disorders is key in order to treat them properly. If you don't intervene early enough, it might be harder to treat the kid or teach them how to communicate, because they've already missed out on years of development. So,
I completely agree. I think that's one of the things that you can do, and get yourself as much support as possible as well. It is because you're going to be going in for a wild ride, and I think it's important for the parents to be at their best to help the child, because not only do you have to get the child help, but as a parent you need to learn how to deal in this whole new world. And it's something that I always try to think when we do this podcast, Joe, is I want to almost talk to myself 15 years ago. And that's how I kind of treat this part of our podcast is discuss and say to my old self, okay, what do you do? Okay, get early intervention. 2, have faith. 3, your child's going to be amazing. 4, get yourself support. Get yourself feeling good, and get yourself feeling okay, that you can not only take care and love your child, but get the best out of your child.
Yeah, that's definitely what you need to do in this type of situation. And not even just with autism too, with any disorder or thing that your child might have. Those are the basic steps that you need to do. Early intervention, having faith, just kind of believe in the potential that your child could have, because many of these things can be treated, and some can even benefit the child if treated properly.
Yeah, and you know what? I hope everyone enjoyed this segment, and I hope everyone got learned something, any nugget of information that helps you, okay? So onward to the next section. Hi, and welcome to our next segment, and this segment is something that Joe would like to talk about, and he kind of clued me in on a little bit, but we're going to wrap at this point and just see where it goes. So, Joe, why don't you take over and let me know what you wanted to talk about?
Yeah, it's actually the rise of something called stalkerware, and it is extremely creepy. So what happens is, there are these apps, what people often call stalkerware, and they'll basically advertise to you, you can, to keep your child safe, right, you install these apps on their phone. Now, the problem with these apps, particularly, is that unlike, first of all, it gives them a treasure trove of data, including things like your IP address, like your text messages, not just your location, too, like, your name, all that stuff. It's all in there. And what will happen is these apps will kind of, like, watch you, and it's very creepy. Like, some of them have collected, like, personal messages that they've sent, Facebook posts, Twitter posts, and what happens is a lot of these apps have been used by not only concerned parents, but also domestic abusers in order to stalk their kids and harm them.
The app itself is put on someone's phone by someone else who wants to look into everything that they're doing? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, pretty much. It's marketed mainly toward concerned parents, and it's not even that bad of a concept, like, in theory, because it allows parents to kind of know, like, okay, well, my kid is doing something inappropriate, maybe he's watching something he shouldn't be, or whatever. But the problem is, not only does the kid not know that the app exists, but also it can be used by people who aren't their parents and should not be gaining access to that information. Like, they can literally know everything about you. So if you're trying to get away from domestic abuse and those kind of horrible situations, the stalker can stalk you again, and that's really not good.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, see that's the thing about one of the things about having the phones, and one of the things that has changed over the last, I would say about 10 years since, I guess, the development of the iPhone, which is now about 12, 13, 14 years, is that everyone, they call it a phone, but it really, Joe, is it's a computer. Essentially, it's a computer in your hand.
A mini computer.
And anything that has anything like a computer data can be pulled from it. And not only is this app doing it for other people who can essentially stalk another human, and I do agree that there should be some things in place that a parent can use to keep track of a child, a younger kid, who shouldn't be on certain
news
websites,
sites,
shouldn't be
using certain things, like,
right.
not like the most appropriate things.
Right. Now, but then it does play into a dangerous game where, okay, if that app is picking up that information, what is that app doing? Or are they also selling this data, or are they also looking at this information themselves? Because if they can collect it for you, they can collect it for themselves, right?
Yeah, definitely. They have a whole treasure trove of stuff. They literally have, they have way more than you think they do. And the FTC actually busted one of these companies. They ordered one of them to alert many of the people who have been victims of this, because thousands of people who have been suffering from not only domestic abuse, but also, like, children who've been suffering from, like, child abuse, their abusers download these apps on their phone while they're asleep. They don't know that the app is on their phone, and they can track down. Yeah, it's totally in the background, and they can track down if they try to escape the abuse, if they talk about the abuse, or if they try to call the police on their abuser, or try to call the authorities or anything. It's not a good system. It's very creepy how much information they can truly get.
I had no idea. Yeah, I had no idea how tricky it can be. And yes, putting something in the background is scary. I even heard of a way of that hackers can actually get into your phone through a text message. They can actually text message your phone, and if you don't even have to open up the link. If they've gotten the text message into your phone, they can track every single thing you click on. And look into it. They can look into your emails. It is a scary, scary time. I wish I knew a way to combat this in a safe way. I guess what I would say is, if you have something on your phone, try not to put your too much personal information on the phone. But I don't know how you can even combat that, Joe. I don't even know what to say.
Yeah, it's pretty scary because you really can't do much. Like, if you have one of these apps, first of all, you probably don't even know it was on your phone at all, because it's not on the home screen. You don't know it's on there. I don't even know if you can find it in settings.
Is there a way? Did the article say anything about a way of diagnosing and telling if your phone actually has one of these things?
I don't know. It didn't really say. It's very hard to tell if your phone has one of these stalkerware creepy apps installed on it. It's a very like, how do I say it? Like, it's born from this idea of, like, let's protect kids, but it's in reality being used to, like, stalk people, and that's not really a good
parents.
thing.
There may be an app that you think is good to watch over your kids, but it could be also something that actually can pull data from your kid's phone and be a harmful thing. I think the best thing to do is to only use apps that you can really truly trust, because there's so many apps out there. Mm-hmm. Right, Joe?
Yeah, there's many apps. Some of them you can trust, some of them are very unreliable, and you have to be able to distinguish between apps that are and apps that aren't.
You know, it's funny, I just did something like that. I put an app on my phone that I thought was from Amazon, and it wasn't. And then I looked at it, I said, oh my God, it had the same color as Amazon. It had the same everything, but it wasn't Amazon.
But it wasn't Amazon.
It didn't have the exact same logo, and that's how I caught it. But I caught it too late. It was already on my phone when I caught it, so now I got to delete that app off my phone.
Wait, it was like a mock app?
Kind of, yeah. Yeah, It was one of those things where it was the Fire TV remote app.
Oh.
And my batteries went dead, and I was like, I just want to change the channel on my remote. So let me put the Amazon, app on my phone, and I pulled some random one that was some random, and then I realized, this isn't working. So I'm gonna delete it. But it's the exact same thing. I bought some type of third party app that was just sitting in the app store, which I don't know. Do they have safeguards to put apps on these app stores, or does anything just go in?
Good question. They actually do, but some of them aren't exactly effective. Like, Play Protect actually is there, but it only catches around like 60. I think Play Protect senses like 60% of the apps that are viruses. Antivirus software can catch a lot of them, but even then, some will slip through the rug. And Android phones are pretty, Play Protect is like after that. I think there is a computer system that does kind of try to protect it, but there are a lot of apps that slip through those cracks, so you have to be very careful of them.
I think the lesson to anyone out there that's listening to this right now is just be really careful about what apps you put on your phone, and make sure that they're reputable, and make sure that they're safe, because you never know what they're tracking. I know even with social media, I have conversations, and all of a sudden an advertisement will come up on my phone, or I'll get an email over something I was just talking about. So obviously there's some type of spyware on my phone from one of the apps I have going on right now. Or is it Apple? I have no idea. But all I know is if I talk about anything random, and all of a sudden it comes up on my phone. So
yeah,
they
can actually hear audio. But people often, they just click allow on all the permissions without actually looking into it. You give them permission to use a lot of things. You have to give them permission to use your mic. You have to give them permission to use your camera. And so, with the mic, they can record anything that you say. They can hear anything that you say. So, it's pretty creepy. Even things like Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, all those social media apps, they can pretty much hear anything that you're saying. So
always be aware of that, everybody.
On to the next segment.
Hi, and welcome to this bonus edition, right, of Joe.
Bonus segment of Joe and John.
Yep. And in this segment, we are actually what we call IRL, right? You know what IRL means, Joe?
In real life.
That's right, in real life. And in real life means we are actually driving right now.
Yeah,
so
pretty much.
The reason why we wanted to do this segment is to actually circle back a little bit onto a previous segment that we had in regards to
French fries.
That's right, the French fry segment. The French fry segment, if anyone who has not heard the previous episode, Joe and his brother Ryan ranked the top 5 French fries.
And one of our viewers left us a comment.
Yes, and that viewer was the listener, I should call him, right? We don't have any viewers yet. We're not on YouTube yet, so they can't see your handsome face yet. But we had a listener comment, and the comment was, and it wasn't the first one I heard. I actually heard it by a second person. I can't remember who it was, though. But the one listener said, what about Chick-fil-A fries? And wow, I thought, oh my goodness, I think we might have missed one. Joe, what do you think about those Chick-fil-A fries?
Those Chick-fil-A fries are actually really, I would have ranked them both above McDonald's and probably Burger King as well. They probably would have made number 3 if I'd actually factored them in there. The thing about Chick-fil-A is there aren't that many in our area. We live on Long Island, and there aren't that many around here. So Chick-fil-A doesn't often come into my mind. Like, when I think of fast food places, I'm not thinking of Chick-fil-A because there just aren't that many near us. So I didn't even think of that, but yeah, Chick-fil-A fries are really good, and the fact that they have waffle fries also makes them unique in a way. It's like how they taste very good. They're overall very solid fries.
I love waffle fries. Waffle fries are one of my favorites. So anytime I see them on a menu at a restaurant, I'm always getting the waffle fries.
Yeah, waffle fries are really good.
They're fantastic. So, I'm sorry if you're hearing some feedback. We are actually in the car once again. And we also wanted to talk a little bit about some of the listener feedback that we've been getting.
Yeah.
And I have to say, they've been wonderful. Thank you so much for everyone who's liked and commented on the podcast. We're going to continue to do this and continue to have fun with it, right, Joe?
Yep, we are. We are going to continue to do this probably every week. Some weeks will be later in the week than other weeks, but mostly we're going to be by the time Friday rolls around, there'll be a new podcast.
Yeah, and how do you think we can grow this podcast, Joe? What do you think we can do?
Maybe start some ads, maybe get more people listening, get the people to share this podcast.
I think that's one of the best ways.
So,
that's one of the best ways.
Actually, I came up with a little idea. You guys, the people listening, should probably share this podcast with 2 of your friends.
And you know what? If they share it with 2 of their friends,
it keeps going.
Who share it with 2 of their friends.
See what I mean?
Exactly. Now, right now, Joe's been following the downloads, and we are doing actually pretty good for 2 episodes so far. I'm pretty happy because we've got
over 100 downloads already, so that's pretty good.
That's fantastic. You know what? And it's been done with very minimal
advertising. We haven't really done any ads.
I've reached out on social media a little bit to try to get some people to listen, and family and friends. And
we haven't even done a formal ad. I haven't I haven't gone on you can actually go on many of these platforms and have advertisements for it. We haven't even done that, so it's pretty impressive, our growth.
Yeah, onward and upward, right, Joe?
Yep. Because we do want to grow this thing to at least a decent sized following, or probably more kind of how do you say it? We just want people to kind of listen, so...
And you know what? We want you to enjoy.
And enjoy it,
We want you to listen. We want you to be informed. So that's why every episode we try to do a little informing. We try to talk a little bit about some of our opinions.
That's true.
But we also want to educate people about special needs. So if you happen to know someone who has a young child with special needs, or know someone who is in a family with someone with special needs, or you may have a special needs child, I hope you not only tune into this episode, but future episodes, and follow us and share it. And as you can hear, there's a blinker on right now. But again, we're doing it in real time, real life.
Yeah, and also, I feel followers isn't always it's not something that you should how do you say it? You can't obsess too much over follows and downloads.
Not at all.
But you want to at least grow to a point where you at least have a decent following, and then you can kind of stop from there.
Or you know what? Or you never know where it goes. What if we keep
and you
going?
don't know where it goes too? Yeah, that can definitely be a thing.
We know there's millions
also
of podcasts out there, and we have millions of options. So if you've actually given this opportunity to listen to this episode, we thank you so much for that.
Thank you a lot, and we are of course thankful for all of our followers who've continued to support us. You left amazing comments, amazing feedback that we have actually read over, and I think they're great.
Thank you so much, and I hope you enjoyed this little bonus segment. Hello, everybody, and welcome to our next segment. And our next segment is where I'm going to... Joe told me about a TikTok fad or TikTok challenge that's going on right now, and I found it fascinating, and so I asked him to do a little research on it, and he's going to tell us about it right now. Joe, what is it called?
It's called one of the worst names I've ever heard. Devious Licks. Now, you might hear that
that
name,
sounds like to me?
and it sounds like they're licking stuff off of, like, licking things, but
Or a Kiss
it is
tribute
totally
band.
not. It is where teenagers will go into their schools. At first it started in the bathroom, and they would just steal stuff from the bathroom. They would unscrew, like, entire urinals. They would unscrew, like, the toilets. They would take the sinks. They basically take anything in the bathroom, and then it's spread outside of that, because things always spread. Then they steal MacBooks. They steal, like, soap dispensers. It's actually caused millions of dollars worth of damages to schools, so that's something that I also read about.
So,
And a lot of kids are now expelled for that, so...
do you know why they called it licks, though? Is that something...
It was something that the first TikTok video about this, it was them stealing, like, a soap dispenser or something, and they called it, they said, only a month into school, and I got this absolute devious lick, as if, they celebrated, the return of school by stealing something from the school. And it went viral, and quickly many others wanted to follow suit. They wanted to get, like, this TikTok fame. I don't even know why the TikTok fame is so valuable. I mean, people on that app, they literally get, like, 20 million views a video. I've never really understood TikTok, me.
I can never really understand what makes something go viral like that. I mean, someone's stealing something, and the next thing you know, it's funny, after you mentioned it to me, I had actually seen it on mainstream news this morning, or it was yesterday morning, and I said, I didn't watch the segment, but I said, oh my God, that's something Joe just told me about. So, the kids seem to be way ahead of the game, and then all of a sudden, by the time it hits the news, it's already happened. And I believe that from what I saw that TikTok is removing all the videos, right? They're trying to get rid of them.
Yeah, but people have found their way around that. They're just using, like, other keywords. They tried removing the term devious licks, but the problem is now they're just using variations of that, so I don't know, I can't remember exactly what variations they were using, but now they're just using variations of that in order to get these videos up.
So stuff's still being stolen from these schools.
Yeah, pretty much. I think it's kind of gone down a bit already, I think, but it's still still pretty popular even now. Still very popular even now.
So, I think that parents really have to watch what their kids are watching on these things. Now, what do they? Now I know that there must be some heavy penalties going on with schools, right? I mean,
kids are getting, like, expelled. They're getting, like, suspended from these schools, because the thing is, some of them literally put, like, their names associated with these things because they're, like, very proud of themselves. And even if they don't, they try to post it anonymously, but then the school catches them on the security cameras. So even if they don't post their name with it, which some of them don't, they'll still get caught, and the schools are starting to expel kids. They're starting to now introduce, like, chaperones. So when you go to, like, the bathroom, you have to have, like, a chaperone with you in order to make sure that you're not stealing stuff.
Oh my goodness. So are they doing, now from your perspective, have you noticed a change in your school? Have they changed anything? Have they started any of these practices?
Actually, not really, because my school isn't as heavily affected by it as other schools have been. But I've heard that my brother's middle school was heavily affected by it. They took a lot of stuff from there too, and were showing it on TikTok. One of my brother's friends got his name's Jake, by the way. I think his friends was a rumor that he got suspended, though I don't know if that's true or not, because he's not entirely sure himself. Also, there have also been problems, like, the principal sent emails, like, saying, like, hey, don't steal stuff. I mean, kids are going to do it anyway, but I think they're probably going to get caught.
Unbelievable that this is happening right now in these, I guess it's not unbelievable. I'm just glad I didn't have a phone back when I was a kid, because people did stupid things then, and there's no video from it, right?
It's true. I mean, like, the thing is, teenagers have kind of always been this way. Like, if you really think about it, like, you know, like, even, like, back in, like, the 80s and the 90s and, like, all that stuff, there have always been these sort of, like, rebellious movements. I don't know what it is, but for some reason, I think it's probably, like, the hormone release in the body. It makes you want to, like, revolt against authority and the parents and all that stuff. So when these teenagers start, like, stealing stuff, vandalizing stuff, it happens all the time. The difference before is that it wasn't as serious because people were just doing it to be sneaky. No one was doing it for any other reason. Now people are doing it for the idea that they might be famous, and more people are starting to try it because they hope that their videos will go viral. They'll be famous. They'll be well known around the world of TikTok. I don't even get, like, why people do it for fame, but, like, they're not really making much money from it, and my brother said that it was because, like, you know, people are sick of the school system, but I don't really get how, first of all, I don't even get how that's fixing things. If anything, that's just convincing teachers that kids shouldn't be treated right, and second, that kids don't deserve to be treated correctly, A, and B, I feel like many of these teenagers just really want their fame. They just really want their 15 seconds of clout or whatever.
Well, you know what it is also? It's that there's an avenue where everyone in the world can see something you did, and if you feel like you did something funny, you could share it with the whole world, and everyone in the TikTok community can see it. And I think that's one of those things that where also teenagers are not necessarily developed enough to realize that everything they do and they post can get them in trouble too.
And I don't even know if they realize, like, the bad stuff that comes from this too, because, like, or the true scale of their actions either, because, like, when I stated this in my class, a lot of people were like, yeah, it's so cool, you know, and I feel like they don't entirely realize, like, how bad it actually is.
So you talked about it in class?
Well, we briefly mentioned it. It was like one of the kids was like, I looked something up online and I believed it, and then he was like, why don't you start stealing stuff now? And then we were mentioning devious licks, and then all the students were like, devious licks, yeah, and I think they think, like, oh, well, it's kind of cool to, like, you know, kind of like devious to, like, do this type of stuff, but then when you start to, like, look at it more, you start to realize the amount of damage it actually causes, like...
Oh yeah, it's damaging property. You know, it's a crazy world out there. Speaking of crazy worlds, Joe, what do you think of the there's a new mandate that just happened in New York City where you actually have to go in order to go inside a restaurant or inside a show or inside of you need to show a vaccination. If you can't, you're not allowed to. What do you think about that?
Here's the thing about that, though. I feel like, it's kind of difficult. Like, I feel like people should be vaccinated, but I don't know if it should really be mandated, especially at this point where, like, it's still kind of, like, it's been thoroughly researched, but it hasn't been researched for very long. And you can kind of see how skepticism starts to build from that. I feel like also people can't really... I feel like if you tell people what to do, it'll just make people not want to do it. It'll just backfire.
Well, think about right now. There was just a recent, there's been issues at restaurants. Imagine being a hostess at a restaurant or a restaurant owner and having to get a vaccination card or have to turn someone away. I would imagine that wouldn't be good for their business to actually have to turn people away who maybe have gotten COVID already and they don't have a vaccination because they already had it and they're just not feeling like they need to get a vaccination. I feel like it's almost like forcing people to get something and put something into their bodies that they may not want.
Yeah, like even like when I asked like my my mom about this, who actually she's not like an anti-vaxxer, she actually denounces them and she even kind of laughs at them a bit, but even she was like, yeah, I don't really want it forced on people. Like, I feel like forcing this type of stuff isn't really the right way to go. I feel like the better way is to, one, you have to make sure that the anti-vaxxers kind of realize like what this shot is and like how things are. Speaking of that, anti-vaxxers, they often like don't really listen to other perspectives, you could say, but like pretty much no one really does anymore.
Well, here's the
like
deal.
it's actually something we talked about in our AP class.
Yeah, well, you got to remember one thing. There's always going to be one side and another side. One side that thinks everyone should have it, and there's going to be a small portion of the population that never ever going to let anyone put into their body. But I guess the best way to manage a situation in such a large country is to try to influence and try to get the middle of the road people to do the things that are going to help them out. And one of the things that is not mentioned enough about COVID, but it is something that's out there, is that outcomes are related to the person's general health, right? So we know that people are having worse outcomes for the most part. Yes, of course, there's someone who's in perfect physical condition that had a difficult time with COVID. I am not saying there isn't. But for the most part, a lot of people that have had difficult outcomes have had some type of either underlying condition or have had, and I've seen BMI, which is body mass index. The higher your body mass index is, the more susceptible you are to having a difficult time with COVID. And, I think people are scared to mention that. Do you think they're scared to mention that? Because I really think if America becomes a little healthier and works out and tries to get themselves in the best physical condition, I'm not saying it's not gonna cure it, but God forbid you get it, you're in the best physical condition you can be in order to fight this thing. Yeah.
Have you heard like talking about like what people, like, American people or the food companies? Which ones?
What I'm saying is, I think there's not enough focus on people's general health.
Yeah, that is true,
because the people, a lot of people that are having difficult outcomes with this are people that are a little out of shape, or they have diabetes, or they have
pre-existing medical conditions.
Now, if you have a pre-existing condition, or if you have diabetes, or if you have anything that's on those areas, if I was in that situation, I'd run to get the vaccine. I am vaccinated. I'm in my late 40s. I'm not in the perfect physical condition, but I'm also not morbidly obese. I'm somewhere in the middle. Yeah. And what I try to do is I try to keep myself as healthy as possible, because if I do get this thing, I want to be able to battle it. So I think if the powers that be, if the CDC is just upfront with everyone and says, okay, we have had this thing around for about a year and a half. We find that people that are in bad physical or aren't in the best physical condition should really, really get this vaccination. And if you are a little overweight, you should try to lose some weight, because if you do, it can help you. Here are also medicines that can help you out if you happen to get this. Okay, and we're going to have it available to you. Instead of just pushing vaccination. Yes, we know the vaccination can help people, but you still can get it with the vaccination.
And also, one, there are other solutions. And two, I feel like, the health of people isn't really, discussed thoroughly. I've seen so many news articles say, pre-existing medical conditions, but they've never really touched on that enough. They just kind of say it in passing. I've seen a lot of news articles that mention that, but I haven't seen many of them that talk in depth about it.
That's a very good point you're making there, Joe, is that they should be talking about it, because the more knowledge we have in order to understand this virus, the better we can handle the fact that if we happen to get it, what is our best course of action? So if I had one, I keep hearing pre-existing conditions. Almost anyone my age, as a dad, may have a pre-existing condition. There's a lot of us. I want to know which ones. Tell me which ones are having the most problems, because if I happen to have one, I will take more care. I will take actions that can help me. And I feel like they're not talking about, they mention pre-existing conditions have difficult times, but I wish they would just focus a little more on the data. Show me what age group is doing poorly with this. Show me what pre-existing conditions have trouble with it. Tell me if there's a correlation between BMI, body mass index, and the outcome of the virus. Not that you're not going to get it, because I think it doesn't matter if you're skinny, in perfect physical condition, overweight.
Anyone can get it.
Anyone can get it. It's what you is how's your outcome? What's your outcome going to be? Is it going to be difficult? Are you going to struggle with this? Is this going to be something that's going to take you down, or is this something that you can fight off? Now, if there's a correlation between physical condition and the outcome of the virus,
tell people about it.
Exactly. And this can actually have a positive impact on America, because if everyone says, you know what, in order to beat this virus, you got to be in your best physical condition. Whatever God gave you, you got to be in your best physical condition. And maybe it can turn around some people's eating habits, smoking habits,
other things too. Like it can kind of help to treat some of these pre-existing health conditions if people work towards them. And especially if they have a reason to work towards them, like COVID, it would help to,
wouldn't that be the ultimate motivator?
That,
It's the ultimate motivator. I don't want to die from this thing. I want to stay on this planet. So I'm going to take care of myself. I'm going to make better decisions. And I think a lot of people, the more information we can get, instead of just drumbeating vaccine, I get it. I understand it. But let me tell you something. For the people who haven't gotten the vaccine yet, by yelling at them and telling them they must get it, it's not going to work. I got the vaccination because I studied and I talked to my doctor and I made the decision based on the data that I had at that time. Now, what I'm hearing right now is the vaccinations is losing a little bit its effectiveness. I'm not sure what I'm going to do from this point forward, as far as from getting a booster shot or something like that. But I will tell you what I am going to be doing is to try my best to stay in the best physical condition, that if I actually get this thing, I can fight it to the best of my abilities.
That's pretty much all I have to say. That's pretty much all we have to say. We're signing off. See you guys next.
Hey guys, that was our podcast for this evening. Sorry it took so long to upload. I have been bombarded with a lot of schoolwork, but now I have time to do that. So please make sure to leave a like if you like this podcast, and please leave us a comment in the a review. We really appreciate it.